Next on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We established a emergency relief fund.
The chair of the National Cattlemen's Foundation explains how the organization is reaching out to help cattlemen around the country. Also, tips on how to deworm your herd in the upcoming spring season. Plus, a day in the life of W.D. Farr, the man many consider a pioneer in the cattle industry.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen with your host, Susie Ross.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Susie Ross. Spring is just a few weeks away, and that's good news for cattlemen who have had a decidedly rough winter. The volatile weather and the very tough grain market have created some major challenges for cattle feeders in recent weeks. So how are these conditions affecting feedlot placements? We have more in today's Market Watch. Joining us for this week's Market Watch is Kevin Good of Cattle Facts. Kevin, thanks for being here.
Nice to be here.
We just got the new Cattle on Feed report. What trends are you seeing in that report?
Well, the most major trend that we're seeing is the cattle on feed numbers are below a year ago. On feed numbers are at 97% compared to last year. This is the first time we've had a year-to-year decline in the last 15 months. The major reason is lighter placements that we've seen through the winter, especially in January. Placements are at 77% of last year, primarily because of the severe winter weather as well as high corn prices. The bottom line is, right now we've got 350,000 head less cattle on feed than a year ago, which should mean that the fed market should stay pretty good as we move on into the spring.
Are these numbers pretty consistent across the country, or are you seeing different results region to region?
There's definitely some regional differences. If we looked at Nebraska and Iowa, on-feed numbers are up 2% in both of those states today, versus Texas, which is down 8%, Kansas, which is down 6%. Severe winter weather affected the southern plains more than the northern plains this winter, and with high grain prices, the cost to gain is quite a bit cheaper in the north versus the south, so we're seeing more cattle fed in the north today than we've had in the past. If we looked at it, the bottom line is about 250,000 head more cattle are being fed in the north versus the south compared to a year ago, and this equates to about 1,600 head per day.
Okay, there you have it. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
For more information, visit the Cattle Facts website at cattle-facts.com. Making news headlines this week, U.S. beef exports grew faster than expected last year. The U.S. Meat Export Federation says exports rose by almost 40% in volume and by 50% in value compared with 2005. The rise came despite limited access to the Japanese market and the continuing trade stalemate with South Korea. Shipments to America's #1 export market, Mexico, are also on the rise, while Middle Eastern countries also showed excellent growth, especially in sales of variety meats. Alternative marketing arrangements do very little to interfere with the cash market for cattle. That's the finding of a long-awaited study released by USDA. The study confirms cattlemen can benefit from various methods of marketing cattle without reducing competition in the marketplace. NCBA has opposed legislation that restricts cattlemen's marketing options. The USDA study lends strong support to that position. And senators from several western states are calling for reform of the Endangered Species Act. Proposed legislation will give affected states and landowners a large role in protecting endangered and threatened species. Ranchers say these reforms have been badly needed for many years. The bill awaits further action by the Environment and Public Works Committee. Cattlemen around the country are struggling to cope with natural disasters. But from Hurricanes Katrina and Rita to the major blizzards on the high plains, the National Cattlemen's Foundation is there to assist farmers and ranchers stay on their feet in the wake of a natural disaster. To date, the Cattlemen's Foundation has raised $120,000 to help those affected by the hurricanes along the Gulf Coast. And so far, some $72,000 has been raised to assist those hit hard by this year's strong winter storms. Foundation Chair Bob Jozerand says the organization is finding new ways to let cattlemen help cattlemen.
We established a emergency relief fund that's going to be set up right now. We have funding for it. It'll be there so that if you have a tornado in Florida today and you need funds immediately tomorrow, we have the funds available to send you.
Mother Nature can take her toll on a rancher or farmer's livelihood. Donations given to the Cattlemen's Foundation are distributed to the states most affected by a disaster so that the money reaches those most in need. To donate, head to nationalcattlemenfoundation.org or call 303-694-0305. It's a hot topic right now, the 2007 Farm Bill. So what does the USDA say cattle producers can expect this time around? Cattlemen to Cattlemen's Jim Witt has more in this week's Cattlemen's Capital Concerns.
Cattlemen's Capital Concerns, brought to you by Fort Dodge Animal Health, makers of Cydectin Poron and Triangle Vaccines.
Secretary Mike Johans says after listening to farmers and ranchers across the country, the USDA is proposing bolstering market-oriented farm policies and increased funding for conservation programs in the next Farm Bill.
The newly designed EQIP program will increase simplicity and accessibility to the program. So we're consolidating, and then we're adding to that an additional $4.2 billion. Now, in one of those base programs, 60% is to be devoted to this industry. So where that will end up when the Farm Bill is done, I don't know. But I can tell you it's a program that's worked very, very well for the cattle industry. We believe in it. This is going to be a better program, much more understandable, and it's responsive to what cattlemen were telling us.
Johans proposes new Farm Bill funding for renewable energy research and talked of possible changes for Conservation Reserve Program acres in response to corn prices.
We haven't done anything differently yet, but we continue to study the issue and continue to study supplies. Again, I just caution people, and I think people realize this. 1 acre out of CRP does not equal an acre of corn. A lot of that CRP ground is truly good for conservation.
Expanding export markets, always top on the list for cattle producers, remains a top priority at USDA.
In order to be effective, we not only need to be aggressive with our multilateral WTO type approaches, we need to be aggressive on a bilateral basis.
Johans cited the European Union as a region that must break down barriers and follow our lead.
So, if they matched our ambition, the world would change pretty quickly. You know, I'd just say to the European Union, you know, the days of having your market protected and closed, I think, are coming to an end.
Johans testified before Congress for nearly 3 hours about his new 2007 Farm Bill ideas. It is Congress that officially writes the new Farm Bill, and debate between lawmakers over funding allocations will continue for months. This is Jim Witt for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
The full 2007 USDA Farm Bill proposals are available online at usda.gov/Farm Bill. You'll also find Farm Bill forum transcripts and public comments from farmers and ranchers. Ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, fall is the most common time of year to think about deworming a cattle herd, but there are programs to help protect your animals during other seasons. We'll have details. Plus, a look at the life of the man many call the father of the modern-day feedlot. But first, here's a look at this week's market summary provided by CattleFax.
Purina's wind and rain minerals are research tested and field proven to provide balanced mineral nutrition essential for cattle health, growth, and reproduction. They're highly palatable so cattle consume what they need when they need it. And wind and rain minerals special formulation resists the elements so they won't blow out of the feeder and maintain their palatability even if they've been wet. Wind and rain cattle minerals from Purina Mills, building better cattle.
There ain't no bugs on me. There ain't no bugs on me. There may be bugs on some you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
Canine Advantix is the one that repels and kills disease-spreading fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. Frontline Plus doesn't repel and isn't effective against mosquitoes. So ask your veterinarian for Canine Advantix, the one that repels and kills.
Yeah! some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
In 1874, an innovation changed the beef industry forever. It was called barbed wire, and it brought an end to open-range grazing and began a whole new era of cattle management. Today, there's another breakthrough innovation changing the beef industry. It's called Draxxin, and it's one more way Pfizer Animal Health is working with veterinarians and cattlemen to open up a whole new era in animal health. To learn more about Draxxin, talk to your veterinarian.
Hi, my name is Isaac Kawamoto. I work for Parker Ranch, Commonwealth, Hawaii, and you're watching Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Welcome back to Cattlemen. This week, the Cattle Learning Center is focusing on deworming a cattle herd. Dr. Bill Clymer from Fort Dodge Animal Health works at the Longview Animal Nutrition Center outside St. Louis. He had a chance to speak with Cattlemen to Cattlemen's Todd McCartney about the benefits of a good deworming program.
Bill, traditionally, producers deworm in the fall. Explain to us how research indicates that actually it's spring to be the best time.
We need to always consider, of course, what's going to fit the rancher's program, but we also can change these programs occasionally if we need to, if it's more beneficial to that rancher. The optimum time to do this treatment is usually when that calf's about 6 weeks old till he's about 2.5 months old. So, and that single treatment will probably give you the best bang for your buck, the best economic return of all, any time that you could treat.
Bill, there are numerous studies that point to the economic benefits of deworming, am I right?
Absolutely, Todd. Matter of fact, we've done this study many, many times, or similar studies, and we've always got at least 100% return on our investment. In other words, if we spent $5 for the cost of the dewormer, we got back $10 or more in return.
It's known that that cow, when she reaches 2 years of age and older, she probably can handle a small amount of parasites. But we're looking at the bigger picture, am I right, by treating that cow?
They sure are, Todd. Matter of fact, we found that, a cow-calf pair may put 51 million eggs on a pasture in a normal grazing season. If we figure that 30% of those may become a larvae that the cow can get reinfested with, that means that cow-calf pair, one pair out of a herd of 100 is going to put 15 million larvae back on that pasture for them to pick up again or for some other cow and calf to pick up. So the cow is a factory for the eggs. So we need to treat both the cow and the calf to get our biggest bang for our buck in a treatment program.
Mother Nature can give us a helping hand with parasite control in the form of the dung beetle. Tell us about that.
Yes, this is a subject that a lot of people laugh when we first start talking about it, but it is a very beneficial insect. There are about 90 different species in North America, and a lot of people say, well, we don't have them in our state because we're too far north. Actually, they've been collected way up into Canada. They are very beneficial. There's one particular dung beetle, the Onthophagus gazella, that is probably one of the most important ones. It was actually imported from Africa. And that one beetle, the one single beetle by itself can either consume or bury over 15 pounds of manure in its life cycle. And you put a couple of hundred beetles on one manure pat and it'll disappear overnight.
Managing pasture land is important, and the dung beetle can play an important role in that effort. Dr. Clymer has more tips ahead in the second part of this week's Cattle Learning Center. We'll be right back.
Calving season brings an air of excitement, but silent threats like trichomoniasis, vibrio, and lepto may rob you of your valuable calf crop. That's why there's TrichGuard and TrichGuard V5L from Fort Dodge Animal Health. Reproductive challenges met with the proven performance and convenience of TrichGuard vaccines. Fort Dodge focuses on ensuring the next generation of quality cattle, so you can focus on the next generation of cattle producers.
From fresh tomatoes to potatoes and chicken to beef, we're as picky about our quality ingredients as you are. Because that's what we're made of.
You're watching NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen on RFD TV.
Welcome back. Let's continue with this week's Cattle Learning Center and head back to Dr. Clymer, who says parasite control is important in your cattle herd.
Come on over here and let's take a look at this. This manure pat, of course we're in the middle of the winter and wouldn't expect much activity, but they probably won't be able to see this, but actually there's a few holes in this manure pat,
right there.
which would indicate that probably some of our native dung beetle species, and they're active, you know, when we get some warm days, they're going to be active during those periods of time. This is not a typical pat from the standpoint there are just a few holes in it, but those dung beetles are attracted to it when it's fresh. So they won't, it's not available to them for just, you know, but a day or two. But they come in and start working on that manure pat almost as soon as it hits the ground. And they will actually cut their little brood balls out, lay an egg in that brood ball, and either bury it underneath the manure pat, or the rollers will actually move it quite a distance away and then bury it.
Dung beetle would have an impact on horn flies and other parasites.
What they do is they lay an egg in a little ball of manure called a brood ball, and that egg hatches. They bury this in the ground, and then when that egg hatches, the immature dung beetle consumes the content of that brood ball. When they do this, they bury the hornfly eggs and larvae, and they also bury the internal parasites. So they can, we've got research data to show that they can actually reduce hornfly populations by 95% and the internal parasites by 90%. Just because of the sheer action of that dung beetle physically removing the manure from the top of the ground.
You've stressed the importance of the dung beetle and its effect on parasites. Pasture management, is there a role there?
Matter of fact, there's data to show that a cow can actually cover up like over an acre in a year's time with manure pats, and if they're burying this manure, if the dung beetles are burying this manure, we're going to get rid of those no-graze areas. And the other thing, that the advantage that we have, is we can actually reduce our chemical fertilization that we have to put on the property, because the dung beetles are going to be burying that manure and we're getting more economic benefit. There's been some research studies done that show that we actually increase the forage production in pastures where there's heavy dung beetle populations.
With the benefits of the dung beetle being known, it's no coincidence that you have worked toward products that have less impact on that insect.
Yes, we do. Matter of fact, Sidectin is a product that is very dung beetle friendly. It does not affect the immature stages of the dung beetle, which there are some products that do. So the more we can enhance this dung beetle population, the more help we're going to have with our manure problems and with our parasite problems.
You're working with Mother Nature.
We're trying to, yes.
There you go.
When setting up a parasite control program for your operation, be sure to consult with your veterinarian or local extension service specialist. For more information on parasite control, go to cattlemen2cattlemen.org. He's often called a pioneer of the cattle industry. Ahead, we'll introduce you to W.D. Farr and tell you about some of his unique contributions to the business. We'll be right back.
Agriculture is a small portion of the population now, and if we're not working together, we're not going to get anywhere.
As our family, we cannot be in Washington, D.C. all the time, and I just couldn't live without NCBA representing.
They're looking out for our interests. They're there fighting for us every day.
If you got 1 cow or 2 cows or 100 cows, you need to be a member.
I'm a member of the NCBA because a long time ago, 35 years ago, I felt that I needed to know more of what my industry is doing. So I got started at the county level. If you're in the cattle industry, now's the time to join and let your voice be heard loud and clear.
You need NCBA working for you, and NCBA needs you. It's easy to join. Just call, get online, or talk with your state affiliate and sign up today.
NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, a television show by cattlemen for cattlemen.
The legacy of W.D. Farr is well known in the cattle business, and at 96 years old, W.D. is still going strong. Now, if you don't know Mr. Farr, he is widely known as the father of modern-day cattle feeding. Here's more on Mr. Farr's outstanding contributions.
It would be impossible to overstate the vision and accomplishments of W.D. Farr to the U.S. cattle industry. He is an icon with more accomplishments, awards, and recognition over his 75 years serving industry organizations than can possibly be recapped in the time allowed here. William David Farr built a cattle feeding pen in Weld County, Colorado in 1931 with 125 head of cattle. 40 years later, Farr Feeders had grown to a 144-pen facility with 2 grassland ranches and 6 farms. Credited with the development of modern-day cattle feeding, Farr made Weld County the #1 feeding county in the United States. Son of a homesteader, Farr was the first chairman of the National Cattlemen's Association Beef Grading Board and was instrumental in establishing a unified grading system. He served as president of the American National Cattlemen's Association in 1970. In 1974, Farr was among the first Americans invited to visit China as an expert in agriculture. These are just some of the highlights of a long and illustrious career. Awards in his honor have been numerous.
This man is a pioneer in our industry. He came along when technology was in its infancy and recognized the fact that it was going to be the pavement of the future.
He was helpful, I'm sure, way back putting the feeders and the cattlemen together and moving the whole group, the whole industry together so that we could work together as a unit, all segments, and make us stronger.
He's nationally known, he's internationally known for all his motivations, his innovations, and his leadership, and especially in the cattle industry and the cattle feeding industry.
If there's ever a man that I could look up to and say, this is Mr. Water, it's W.D. Farr. If there was ever a man that I could say that came into a meeting, sat very quietly, and when he spoke things that we all need to listen to, it was W.D. Farr.
We used to ship him a lot of cattle, and he taught me more things about the cattle business than I had ever known. He is just remarkable, remarkable. And he's my friend, and I love him.
If we're going to honor somebody who is truly a legacy in the cattle business, that man is W.D. Farr. And the thought behind the scholarship is, let's honor that legacy.
The National Cattlemen's Foundation is honoring the work of W.D. Farr with 2 annual graduate-level scholarships. The deadline is fast approaching. For details, head to nationalcattlemensfoundation.org. Our Legacy Photos program is turning up pictures from farms and ranches across the country. Here's a look at this week's selection. Send us pictures of your family and operation. Head to our website at cattlementocattlemen.org. Next week, we'll take a look at horse health. Plus, we'll hear from USDA about the importance of the food pyramid. And of course, we'll have the week's news and market headlines. Thanks for joining us on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Be sure to tune in next week. A new episode airs every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on RFD TV.